The last rays of the sun made their way through the tall thickets of trees, casting long shadows on the black asphalt. The thermal shimmer created the illusion that the fence posts were dancing as I swept past them. I looked at the clock in the car. It was 6:45. There was still half an hour to go to my destination, and considering that I had been driving for more than 9 hours, I felt surprisingly cheerful. Perhaps it was the excitement of meeting my sister, whom I hadn't seen in 12 months. It was excitement mixed with sadness, because 12 months ago we buried Katie's husband Colin after a tragic accident on their farm. Being widowed at the age of 25 seemed so cruel, and the fact that it happened to the most caring, loving, attentive, and cheerful person in my life made it even more unfair. We often FaceTime each other, but on this sad anniversary, I wanted to be there in person to give her all the support she needed. Katie is my only sister, and because she was 2 years older than me, I looked up to her and adored her. She was always there for me. The support I relied on, wise advice when I needed advice, understanding when I was stuffed, a shoulder to cry on when life was difficult. It was the least I could do to be with her, as the bitter memories of those days a year ago were bound to surface. Lost in my thoughts, I lost time, and before I knew it, I was at the farm gate. After unlocking the gate, driving in and closing it behind me, I headed down the gravel road that would lead to the estate in 1 kilometer. After climbing the last rise, a house appeared in front of me. A simple sandstone cottage surrounded on all sides by a bull-nosed veranda. The cottage itself was surrounded by a white picket fence, and on the side leading to the main entrance, there was a colorful garden, strewn with flowers of all colors of the rainbow. I knew that the garden was Katie's pride and joy, and I was pleased to see that despite the past difficult year, Katie looked after it with love, which no doubt was a source of distraction from her grief. I braked and saw Katie running towards me. My heart was racing, overflowing with joy to see her again. Katie was not only beautiful in heart and soul, but also possessed true physical beauty. She is tall and only a couple of centimeters shorter than my 180 centimeters. Her hair had a golden sheen that shimmered in the rays of the setting sun, piercing blue eyes framing high cheekbones, perfect teeth. She could have become a model if she wanted to, but she liked the quiet life on the farm and unity with nature. Katie has always been a freedom-loving person. Maybe it was in our blood. Our parents encouraged our independence and liberal views. There were lively conversations on any topic at the dinner table, and accompanied by 1 or 2 bottles of wine, they could become animated, but they never showed disrespect. I know that both Katie and I were so grateful for the balanced and loving lifestyle that our parents provided for us. "Oh, Greg, you're here, my dear brother. I'm so glad to see you," Katie exclaimed enthusiastically. She was the epitome of summer simplicity, dressed in a flowered sundress with thin straps, which was dominated by yellow and blue tones. "Katie, I'm so glad to see you too. I missed you so much," I exclaimed, feeling tears welling up in my eyes. She smelled faintly of lavender, and I was instantly transported back to the time when we lived at home together, and I smelled her body after a shower. It seemed that she still preferred this particular fragrance. "Come inside, get out of this heat," Katie said, releasing me. "Let me help you with your bags." I travel quite light, so I only took 1 bag with clothes and personal belongings, but I brought some wine and beer, so soon we had everything we needed in the house. A cool breeze blew through the open door. I remember Katie's cottage as cozy, warm in winter and refreshingly cool in summer, and there was nothing more pleasant than having a drink on the front porch in the shade. While the sun was setting behind the back paddock, I have a cold beer in the fridge. "Greg, do you want to?" Katie asked, "Is the Pope a Catholic?" I replied sarcastically, knowing that Katie would have laughed at that, since it was my usual answer to the question of whether I wanted a beer. "You're smart," Katie replied. "I'll take him out to the front porch." "Do you want to change your clothes?" "I'd love to have a beer first, and then maybe I'll take a shower and change into something more comfortable, if you don't mind." I said, "Greg, you just make yourself at home. You don't have to ask for anything. As they say, my house is your house." I like that in Katie's presence I could relax and be myself. It has always been so. We were like 2 peas in a pod when we were kids, and I can't remember ever having harsh words between us. We sat and chatted, discussing the events of the last 12 months. Fortunately, she was doing well. She was busy at the farm. There was no mention of any new love interest, but that didn't surprise me, since even when Colin was alive, they pretty much kept to themselves. I actually remembered Katie telling me once that they had a couple of friends who shared their love and visited them from time to time. When I mentioned it, Katie said she'd only seen them once since Colin died. Unfortunately, she felt a change in their attitude and did not expect to see them often in the future. I finished my first beer, so I decided to take a shower and change my clothes. I'm just going to take a shower, Katie, and then maybe have another beer. The first one was delicious, I said. Go ahead, and as I said, make yourself comfortable. I'll cook us something else delicious, Katie replied. Great, I replied, heading for the bathroom. After the shower, I felt much better and was glad that I didn't have to get dressed, as it was still very hot. I dried off and casually returned to the front porch. Katie was sitting waiting for me with a plate of cheese, cold meat, and fresh beer for everyone. She was the epitome of beauty. Oh, Greg, it's just like the good old days at home. Katie said, That's right, sis. I agreed heartily. Let me look at you, I said, pushing her away. You look great, Katie. Life on the farm is clearly becoming to you. You have a great tan. Yes, Greg, it is. It's so private here, Katie explained. And look at you. I see that you go to the gym. Yes, my desk job meant that I didn't get enough exercise. The gym is right next door to work, so I go there quite often, I replied. After finishing the mutual assessment and wiping the dust, we sat down to have another beer. The sun had really set, but it was still pleasantly warm. You must be hungry, Greg, Katie realized. I thought we could make a chicken salad. It's pretty simple to cook. That's fine with me. Let me help you cook everything, I said, getting up. And together we headed to the kitchen. After finishing dinner, we retired to the living room to watch some TV. Katie sat on the couch next to me, and we watched some kind of reality show. Katie's body next to mine brought back pleasant memories of when we were at home. When Mom and Dad were sitting on one couch and Katie and I were on the other watching TV, or maybe playing cards, I've never taken my privileged upbringing for granted. I must have fallen asleep, because the next thing I remember is Katie shaking my shoulders. Hey, it's time for you to go to bed. You fell asleep. I know the show was boring, and you had a hard day. Kathy defended herself. Katie helped me to my feet. Katie walked me to my bed, and I climbed in. Sleep tight, little brother, she said. You don't have to get up early in the morning, so get a good night's sleep. But there are a few things you can help me with. I'm looking forward to it. Who knows? Maybe I'll make a good farmer. Joked. I watched Katie leave my room. In the morning, I woke up to a golden ray of sunlight streaming through the window. I looked at my phone, and it said it was 9 o'clock. I must be tired because I usually get up around 6. I was lying there, not wanting to get up from my very cozy, comfortable bed. Soon, I heard the sound of a whistling kettle coming from the kitchen. It's time to get up, I thought, so I struggled out of bed and trudged into the kitchen. Katie was standing there. Good morning, Greg, Katie said. I'm making scrambled eggs. Do you want some? And coffee, too, Katie asked, pulling away from me. Of course, I replied. I'll make some toast. We sat down to have breakfast and plan our day. Greg, the ATV won't start. You know so much about engines. Could you take a look? Katie asked with doe eyes. Don't worry, I said. Excited at the prospect of tinkering with technology, the sun was blazing when we left the house after breakfast and headed for the equipment shed. Unfortunately, I knew that it would be even hotter inside the barn under the corrugated iron roof. And I tried to start the ATV, but it just gurgled and wouldn't start. After several tests, I came to the conclusion that it was a clogged fuel line. Do you think you can fix it, Greg? Katie asked, hopefully. I think it's a clogged fuel line, and if it is, I can fix it. It will take a few hours, but that's not a problem, I replied optimistically. Thank you. Kathy stammered. You have no idea how much I missed riding an ATV. You're saving my life. I have some chores to do, Katie said, but I'll come down and check on you later. Don't worry, I replied, gathering up the necessary tools and getting to work. I worked for about an hour and was covered in sweat. It was a hot, dirty job, but despite that, I got great satisfaction from working with my own hands. I also made good progress, confident that the problem was the blocking. It's time to take a break. You're going to need this. Katie returned with a large pitcher of ice water. She was not mistaken. I felt pretty dehydrated and knew it would be wise to take a break and have a drink. Look at you, hot, sweaty, and dirty. I really like men who work and get dirty. Katie joked, well, then it's me. When was the last time you saw an immaculately clean mechanic? I asked, that's exactly it. So how is it going? Katie asked, I'm pretty sure it's a clogged fuel line. I cleared the line and flushed the water. I'm just going to put it all together and try it out. Fingers crossed, I said, I hope so. If you fix it, we can ride it to the dam. You can get cleaned up and we can swim to freshen up. Katie said to spur me on. Katie sat down on a bench and I joined her to take a break and have a refreshing drink. I looked at her. Have you been to the Sound? I joked, haha, you'd think so, wouldn't you? Feel how hot my skin is. Oops, I said, I'm sorry about that. It's all right. You can wash it off at the dam. Katie replied with a cheeky wink at me. Agreed, I replied, thinking to myself that it would be nice. I just kept chatting with Katie while finishing my drink. Okay, I'm going back to the house. Be careful. Don't drop the hammer on that thing. Kathy advised. I went back to my work. I cut the worn edge off the fuel line and used a new clip to attach it to the carburetor. Fingers crossed, I turned the key. Success. The engine roared to life. I felt immensely proud and satisfied. Not bad for a guy who works in an office. But I was confident in myself because I spent my whole life tinkering with cars and engines with my dad. I got on the ATV and headed for the manor, roaring the engine when I got there to lure Katie out. You did it. What a smart boy you are. But I knew you would do it. Katie exclaimed enthusiastically. It was well past noon, so the promised trip to the dam beckoned. I'll just get the towels. And I think you deserve a beer, Katie said, disappearing into the house. Returning a minute later and jumping into the back seat of the ATV, we set off. Quad bikes are a lot of fun, and I raced along the path to the dam with cheerful carelessness. Katie encouraged me to drive faster. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea because I hadn't been on the track for a while. And it definitely seemed harder to me than the last time. Turning the corner, I hit a large pothole, and we flew into the air, landing with a thud. We both roared with laughter, and without causing any harm, turned left at the fork. The dam was in sight. Race. Katie growled, dismounting quickly and running to the water's edge. I caught up with her and performed the perfect rugby move when we both collapsed into the cooling water. We surfaced spluttering and laughing. We were like two small children, splashing and frolicking, dipping and splashing on the water. I brought a bar of soap. It's in the fridge with the drinks. I think you should get yourself cleaned up before we have a beer. I'll go get it, Katie said. I watched her come out of the water like a Greek goddess. I definitely liked what I saw. Soon she returned with soap and decided that she would play the role of a mother and wash me. I had no objections. I was dirty from head to toe, so she had a lot of work ahead of her, but she was happy to take it on. She splashed water on my face, washing off the rest of the soap. We've been close all our lives, and it was just a frank expression of that. We couldn't help but make love. After looking into each other's eyes, we silently decided to take a walk to the shore. We sat down on our towels, and I reached into the fridge, pulling out 2 beers. Cheers, we said, clicking our bottles. Katie, I said, I'm scared. Have we gone too far? We are brother and sister. Of course, we should have stopped. In my own opinion, I had absolutely no regrets, but I should have known how Katie felt about the whole episode. Have I completely ruined our relationship? And I would be shattered if that were the case. Greg, I've never felt so alive. We love each other. We have our whole life. What we have is special. I feel absolutely no guilt or shame, Katie explained. I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. Emotionally, we were on the same wavelength and took our relationship to a whole new level. We sat in silence and sipped our beer, happy and in harmony with the whole world. Birds were jumping from branch to branch, and I couldn't imagine a time when I would feel one with nature, and so controlled my emotions. The tranquility reigning in the thicket of bushes corresponded to my mood. I've never been so happy. Okay, brother, take a quick dip before we get home, Katie demanded. Walking to the water's edge, I followed her, dived under the water, and swam to the middle of the dam. I stopped and was floundering in the water when Katie swam up to me. After drying off, we jumped on the ATV and drove back to the estate more leisurely. I knew I needed to take a nap, It was a physically and emotionally exhausting morning. I was excited that I had 6 more days with Katie ahead of me, and I could only imagine what lay ahead. After a few minutes, I fell into a deep sleep. I woke up with a start, that fleeting feeling that arises when you wake up in an unfamiliar place and for a moment do not understand where you are. I looked around and, of course, realized that I was at my sister Katie's farm. Then the memories of the morning came back to me. I adore my sister. We were so close when we were growing up together. We had a free spirit and we were comfortable being around each other, but our communication was never open, and now it is. I'm sure we both accepted the change, and it only brought us closer together. It was quite dark in the room, and I assumed it was well past noon. I'm more tired than I thought. Sleeping in the middle of the day is something I rarely do. I got out of bed and went to look for Katie, finding her on the front porch reading her book. Hi, sis. Wow, I was completely knocked out. How long did I sleep? I asked. A good 3 hours. And I was just going to go in and wake you up. Otherwise, you wouldn't have fallen asleep today, Katie added. That's right, I agreed. Would you like some white wine? I'll take it for myself, I asked. Yes, please, Katie replied. So I went to the kitchen and returned with a nice Pinot Grigio and 2 glasses. I stood next to Katie and poured her a drink. Katie wasn't a cheater. I can only remember one guy from high school, and then she married Colin. We sat, talked, and drank. I didn't want to let her go. How about some more wine? I think we both could use another one, I suggested. The sun was setting, and it cast a muted golden glow on Katie's body. She looked just like an angel, and I just had to stop for a second and catch my breath. She caught my eye and just smiled back at me. I returned with the drinks and sat down. Katie was sitting right across from me and had her feet up on the coffee table. After our conversation, we made love again. We lay in silence for a few minutes, but I needed to talk to Katie. Katie, are we really doing something so wrong? We are brother and sister. Society condemns such behavior. I asked plaintively. For my part, I had a clear mind. As for me, I believe that we were expressing the deep love that has been part of our character all our lives. I adored Katie, and she was the most important person in my life. My goal was to make her happy. Greg, what we have is something special, the true love that we give to each other. It doesn't matter to me that we are brother and sister. What could be wrong when it comes to love? Some kids can't stand each other. They can't stand their parents. Family does not mean that love is guaranteed, but we have a special relationship and it's clean. And not only us, but we also have parents who will do anything for us. We are so lucky to have such a friendly, caring family. Katie eloquently explained. She dispelled all my fears. Katie checked the time on her phone. It was 7 o'clock, and we hadn't eaten anything yet. I'm going to make a spaghetti carbonara, sis. It's going to be quick and easy, I announced. I'll help you. Katie volunteered as we headed for the kitchen. Katie brought us another glass of wine while I was preparing the ingredients. Soon dinner was on the table, and we chatted about what we could do in the next few days. It would be hard to surpass what happened today, but you never know for sure. We washed the dishes and sat down in front of the TV to watch a movie. I sat down at one end and Katie lay across me. The movie ended, and we decided it was time to go to bed. Greg, I want you to sleep with me tonight. Katie practically ordered. Of course, sis, I replied. I was looking forward to what tomorrow would bring, but like Katie, I was exhausted and soon followed her into the land of dreams. Such a relationship lasted for several more months, and then Katie found a young man and got married. No one else knows our secret, even her husband.